a rumor of being appreciated or not wanted. His quirks and over the top intellectualism was tolerated like it was nothing too offensive, or it was an always wrong, threatening and not putting in effort the right moments, ridiculous, or offensive, or not in phase with people being threatened and kissing ass or playing weak when people wanted to. All throw making yourself seem weaker to break ice is a strategy with intellectual roots or emotional intelligence. Must be only feeler personalities who do this. There is hypocrisy and stupid positions people could get for no reason, thought James. So does everyone. I could do it better. Analyst personalities usually say about management positions too. They are uncomfortable doing grunt work furthest down, like everyone, or implementing their own ideas, practically. Competence is a contemporary thing, and people usually did another position / responsibility stupid if they didn't have a first one. Everyone sees how someone is terrible at a position, how they could it better, sometimes explaining very well. Expertise is a lot like intelligence, and anyone can be. It's in the benefits of being unique. Things solve themselves sometimes. There's a pushing to being neutral, then analyzing. He went through positions and climbed through rigid society with competence, not noticing the unusual effect. He was assertive enough and niche. He thrived in university like he had done in school before. He was surprised things reached so far, not giving everything. But people had noticed something about it. He had his own pace for intellectual things. He didn't mind getting interrupted, usually further at his own timings, because being rushed was uncomfortable. University work is about timing through. Sometimes he fit his wavelength and learned like expected. They trusted him to fit the university structure, and he gave them what they wanted. They applaud someone figuring out every optional cognizant thing. He was adjusted, yet new in this writing wavelength. He had a thick, short, feminist-looking haircut. He colored white, or maybe blonde-black later in the book, and had DATH tattooed into his left knuckles, and then again in WHIT on his medieval armor. He was a very muscular, V-shaped gym human with 1.7 meters between shoulders and arms like trees. To lose yourself in aesthetics and ease of fantasy. Perfection in growth, always changing, and a promise. Chiseled, jawline, manly face in the Chad direction, square buttocks, striated upper legs, like feathers, like an anatomy chart, disproportional 3D delts. To have an aesthetic look, thus like body sculpturing is about you must have larger shoulders, work out all four heads. It is a weak adjustable muscle, the most injured at the gym, but to get 3D shoulders, you can't just work out everything. You must work out the shoulders twice as much.
Oh, my back.
The triceps was 2/3 of the arm. Naturally, like a triceratops, it moved legendary while working like gritty. Thus, like Kevin Leverny, he had legs for arms, through no peak biceps. Handsome, everything. Something to make the world's strongest men jealous, out of breath and constipated. There seems to be a certain wisdom, patience with the greatest strength genetics, or just giants. They can think strategically conquering society, mathematical. Having below 10% body fat can make you feel fatigue and brain fog, but James compensated by thinking. He looked good. He had experience feeling like a V-shaped vertebra, a carbon-based spine, thinking Reed. But he was reasonable. There was barely any time to contemplate in your ego. He reasoned with himself. There was a competition of morals and just not squatting leg muscles. Lingering for a second, would not realizing yourself in greater minds, in productivity of golden and history of people somewhat caring. Looking into his mirror that didn't fit his body, he found green eyes that looked blank. Could have been the Sahara Desert, focused first then intelligent, a specimen. Could make you think about an INTJ like Arnold Schwarzenegger and fell down the stairs backwards like he wasn't wearing a shirt. He missed the smart refrigerator. I'm lucky I missed the smart refrigerator. The refrigerator hummed, concerned with abstraction and content. Yes, I like it when you get angry. Draw how you see yourself, refrigerator AI. It seemed to be a wizard with knowledge and librarian face. Gray background, enlightenment. Never ceases to amaze me. Refrigerators, I should get a smart microwave. He had taught history in London for 3 years. Terribly useful history is when things are already figured out balanced in the equation of things we can only figure out now. It seemed to be repetition. At least he wasn't a junior teacher. He remembered having a genius, lazy brain about his future until he was attracted by leisurely university history, teaching with Greek philosophy. He thought about Egyptology and usually giving noon jobs, unless teaching it. It was literally a pyramid scheme. But who just learns university just to get easy jobs? A lot of people, I guess. They were searching for his fitting potential, a worrying, frustrating amount of time, or until something was lazy enough. There were so many things he could do, anything his previous teachers had said, but when faced with the decision, he didn't feel he had the right perspective or choosing demeanor. Layers of perspectives for the right times he had, needless of action. Nothing was going to change in history, was it? He was in a brutal band called Until the End or Next Sunday, and a progressive metal band as a bassist called Terribly Drawn Circles. He needed an outlet, being creative thinking about songs and segments on automatic. They were working on the songs Living My Best Life as a Twat, I'm Gonna Pull the Plug, When the Neighbors Wake Up like Meshuggah, Disobey Your Psychologist, Indomitable, Holding On to Something Stupid, Baguettes Pulled at Random, Life is Horrible and Then You Die by a Mums Ford Piano, Master of Nerd Reality. I Like It When You Stop Talking, Desolate Island, like Contemporary Rings of Saturn, A Story Never Told Over Barbecue, Funeral of Dorks. Forsake the Day and Watch TV/TikTok, The Art of Dying in Someone's New Lamborghini, sat on by an ant ogre, that's a brutal one. And The Hurts That Finds You After Coffee Break, Rappers with Dementia, sounded contemporary, but he couldn't do rap. And rap in metal sounds terrible. Try new metal, like Slipknot's first album. Singing song, I Can't Feel My Legs *. I can't feel my legs. I've drunk too much triple shot espresso. The Meshuggah song made my coffee stronger. We're getting there. You need to play something more contemporary. We need more blast beats. The entire song is blast beats. Google blast beats, or it's hitting a snare, a cymbal, and a bass drum at the same time 4 to 8 times per second. What if we both burp at the start of the last chorus and you're singing? No. Listening to their music was like brain surgery and a cat biting your toe at the same time, modern and niche, like poetry aficionados wanting to go to a club or being raw food vegan. Not the progressive band. What was unusual with this backbone linebacker build or combination wasn't endurance or speed, but the clever mind indeed. Maybe one wouldn't expect him to be so smart. Looking with jaws chiseling and eyes piercing, you put him into pressure, yet he powered through mind and philosophizing, speaking and being a thinker first, a choice of perception, a surprising poetic giant, a relative, deliberate, contemporary cognizant, a nerdy 140-150 IQ. An average prog metal instrumentalist and viewer-listener. Being the smartest and brawniest was awesome, yet like hidden and hard to interpret. Obviously, it felt like being kindly recognized in your best theoretical version today. He had joined Mensa and conveyed with these surprisingly social people and respected the weird with their ping-pong rackets of, I want to be talked to or not. All through 150, he had messed up the questions and only barely made it 134 on the test. It was far to drive there, and he was concerned with personal productivity, interrupting genius. He wanted to spend time getting smarter and stronger, capitalizing on the golden moment of clarity and productivity. If someone insults your triceps, you insult them intellectually. If someone insults your nerdy hobby, you energetically throw them out of the window into the garbage disposal, hairy legs sticking up. Sometimes he was gentle, fascinated, patient, and observing. A person present like wet depth seems related to strength. Being fascinated by color combination moths, tear-jerking shimmering red dawns, women, and the human condition. Some mistook it for complacency and insensitivity, showing nothing, but he could very actionable and emotional when it was finally time to act. He went between a certain reservation, not introverted, but like the patience of athlete and delivering on pulling things together, the reservation and truth of the analyst. He had a conservative energy and reservation sometimes, but believed in left ideas, now being convinced by monologuing people for big questions of freedom, equality for the many, never having touched elitism. Maybe he showed a less conservative side when speaking in the brilliance and tolerance of theory. He had a pet 1.1 M deer, continental giant rabbit. These really exist YouTube Belgian giant rabbits that ate vegetables for him at 100 pounds a month, called Sigmund the Destroyer. He was the light brown happiness with the big ears. His feet echoed like drums. Dormant speed and giant-sized dormant power in many ways like a predator. He appreciated being fed these different vegetable shapes, stacked like vegetable cakes, and being seemingly safe. He realized eventually that there is no danger inside, just like
Bathroom.
James wanted him to think. But what if someone brought a dog? They had before. He viewed in front of the very sunny hobby with enough creative things room and looked out through the satellite room, white gleaming with sunlight from two giant windows, high up like a cat. It was cute how he could sit and observe for hours. He fantasized about places, being outside in situations, but in a smoothing of fear or alertness. He liked looking at different people, recognizable cosmopolitan human world, and was happy until stimulation from something else was needed. As a rabbit, things had to be familiar, and thus he would show his cute sides and flop being in the way. He jumped of happiness, he just had to spend the energy and turned into a broad loaf. He was alert and cautious, easy to flight, but being 1.1 meters, there was a fair amount of reasonably fair ground. He knew he was a special kind of animal. Every animal was bewildered and curious, yet it was natural to be a big rabbit. He would not hold excuses, not pretend, not consider it. He had his fears of being alone. Fears that could be reasoned away, but sometimes they were piercing. He scared dogs and pigeons. He would just charge, and they would fear into paving the way. A charging rabbit is fearsome. Kids hugged and loved Sigmund. He realized he is as big as them sometimes, but from a prowling perspective. James thought he was always angry eating. Obviously, he communicated what he needed and would consciously change when it was that time. He was friendly with his human that came and went. He seemed quite all right with water and food hay. Cozy places to sleep, maybe not designed for rabbits, he contemplated. You don't expect these things, the fundamentals, and he kept shuffling my poop pellets. Insane thoughts occurred to Sigmund as this happened, animalistic yet coercing. He thought he had good temper for food compared to other animals, being fine with the swaying of oaks and thyme and will of the wind, knowing his place and a time to persevere. The smaller rabbit seemed stupid. He couldn't help it. A large body means a large brain. He thought instinctively. It all aligned with reality. They could be wild and separate by a fence. Really fun to meet rabbits alike. Surely he would meet someone like himself. He got nervous when he wasn't in the same room as James. He couldn't help it. The separation told him something of being small. He followed him around as an apartment, rabbit panicking as he was left alone. He had integrity to not do tricks unless there was treats. He was a good person or rabbit, doing as he is told. James didn't really notice he was compliant, shocked of instructions and fingers pointed. There is no point exercising, Sigmund thought. He got bored and tired quick, interested in the park foliage and contemporary safety. He communicated better with his mouth and licking. Just like was a rabbit, just like there were strange alien-like purpose. But what purpose? What is there staying in here all the time? He wanted a beautiful garden, variety and tall grass, somewhere to hide that he had many signs of giantism, hanging cheeks and maybe unbalanced anatomically. But he was allowed to exist. His owner has huge shoulders, too, and tall to ceiling. He seemed friendly and natural. There was no second bunny, so his owner had to fill more awkward roles. A kid went up to greet the rabbit on a leash. It's a Pokemon. No, it's not, said thus kid. They are the medium animals to own. Imagine giving one a hug, or any medium animal. When the rabbit lounged forward in the brisk way the kid went, bah, and ran away. It's going to eat you, said James and ran after. Sigmund followed James interested. The kid screamed in primal, over-impressionable. Later the kid would tell his friends who did not believe him and would come to look. He had an expensive apartment in London. All apartments in London are expensive, where everything was sleek, futuristic, black and white, artsy and claustrophobic. It was just 120 square meters, but he had fit in a lot of furniture. He was materialistic about his apartment, really. His TV, everything had to give an impression, of course, exhausting and a look into his mind. Artist on vacation, everything had a place. He used his considerable contemporary salary to buy living room set after fitting kitchen set. It made him feel personal. It's like the start of the Fight Club movie. He was good at memorizing parts of history. He analyzed deeply, really, and connected disparate things. It triggered him mildly first, but then the deep parts of his mind were lecturing. He countered like an informed punch, something too true. He was already ready to pay attention and categorize history, to point out a fifth detail too far. He had the complete History of the World series, memorized gistly in 15 books, but thought it didn't go deep enough. What was the point of the left revolutions of South America? That's more important. The cost of making sure no enemies rise, despite the system being broken, despite bleeding. Why did America stop every single one? Even if communism doesn't work out so well in practice insofar, what is the threat to capitalism, and how costly do it need to be to defend this broken system? Turns out when you're a thinker, you, like getting to the bottom of why and how things work, fascinated and unrelenting, unwavering as you need it, every thinker taking the same path, not noticing each other, proper and thorough inner world. Curious in a way doesn't always make sense and exhausting to exert and listen to, but to get things going sometimes you need to have an extra fire lit under you. The energy to keep unwavering, countering with a second truth. If you miss the chance to be thorough intellectually, you might miss the differentiating part. Every personality, maybe out of 16, has their own kind of introverted under fire, especially the introverts, and a time to fit the intensity. 95% of people are thinkers. We're not orangutans. And less differentiating personality types, half of them are thinkers. Thought James mixing his protein powder with cocoa powder, blueberries, spirulina, algae, and creatine in a white tank top. He was conscious of sulforaphane, like quantifiable health in a plant fiber and nuts-eating body. His supergenetics for strength gave him insight like a finger pointing inside, a feeling of your muscles of unevenness like balancing on a moving wheel. His mental health had set in his body muscles for contemporary chiropractors and skewed growth, forcing an unbalanced hand like trust into a lion.
So very
There
good
was a
showing.
mind for trajectory and flawless catching. The more he exercised, the more he noticed a Herculean endurance. Sometimes a
One
golden
more day,
consciousness
maybe.
of details told him, this is really not something other people do. So this is based on the averages of population. In my gym, city of Englishmen, thought James. His power was dormant, yet fluent, heavy repetition that felt proof and
Just
never really
one day
tiring
there.
because he was a mesomorph. Or
Saturated
was
or
he?
whatever.
He could not really put a finger on it. Truth didn't
Could
really
say
elude
it's
his
neither.
mind. He was certain of pinnacle profoundness like philosophers. Maybe he wasn't supposed to be a beast, shoulders and everything. Maybe he wasn't supposed to be so smart. Maybe he wasn't supposed to be that he defied nature and thought annoying for people in comfortable power. He defied God too really, so he thought with his
Anyways,
science
I'm time to
and
sleep
ENTP
now.
arguments.
It
Cheeky
would be
bloke
easier to stay
posh.
up.
He wasn't really real through, was he? All through 85% of Earth is religious. How could gods possibly affect him in any way from his scrupulous and scrutiny? Eternal promise and spiritual purity, they just go for susceptible people. He had been an atheist now since being an 8-year-old genius, a life of arguing logically where feelings are brushed. But there is no needed to get too offensive and spirited. People need to argue and adhere to logic, irrefutable points when it's time to be logical in an argument. Stick your ground and change your mind. Don't get offended and emotional when it is wrong and weak. He admitted, however, that the ENTP can have their feelings brushed aside the longest. You cannot admit religion is all good. There's oppression of homosexuals and scientific stigma. There are political influences who reduce instead of allow for greater societal progress, or things for the many. You must believe in a scientific creation and scientific facts. You cannot teach Christian creation stories in school and let them have equal ground or choice. The Earth is not 17 years old, and there are things beyond stupid people can understand, as religion being wrong about 100 progressive scientific things that everyone takes for granted and were true. That means there are things that are true now being prevented. I mean, as I said, let's not get spirited insisting that objective things are true is right, taking a stand, and very powerful. It would be cool if religions admitted we were wrong about the silliest 15% of things, outdated or science advanced. Women must be held to equal regard. Religion is also an equation of the conservative powers while dead on Earth. Another planet and religion would have other conservative things, tolerance and inclusion for everyone. We are not tigers who are 15% larger as males with a responsibility. We must get over such things and let there be advanced theories of morals and tolerance. Every religion speaks and promises a spiritual journey. Maybe about 80% of the stuff that they say is limiting should be ignored. What we deserve is hindered by evil, privilege, and axe punching down.
Maybe some fishing.
He had gotten so far in his perpetual gym peddling, it turned into monotone conversations about blunt realization and discipline unuseful. The V shape gleamed good in contrast to the white. The room was comfortably dimly lit and would tell him to sleep if he had
I
listened
only
deeper.
said that.
He had a smoothie of healthy dark green leaves. Pure Fiber, believing this,
Something
was
was making me
gluten-free muffins.
sleepy.
He thought maybe I should overdo it
He
and
thought it was
add
the way
double
after you
pre-workout
slept.
or just drink
You can
coffee.
sleep with your
No,
eyes
that's an
open.
irrational thought. Flaxseed sandlong pepper. He would make another one and fit in excess health like never
Here.
being done,
Interesting.
forgetting he had another 5 things to fit into his eccentric intelligence. Better safe than sorry. I need fiber, and I need omega fats from natural sources. In recovery for perfect recovery, he was in his routine of gymming, reading, writing poetry, making him smarter, brain-derived neurotropic factor finicity vascular, and through language. The prospect of reading is enough to increase IQ points. The efficient part is the language part, a contemporary invention by set brains or by any race. The creativity stuck around and he entered proper states. He was thinking about how there's a perfect and worst position in 4D chess or 5D golf. The smart thing to figure out here is slash and how to beat 4D chess. There's not a certainty or probability cloud, but you have to go for the next best thing. If you had an AI being able to consider every, let's say, 1,000 positions, you would find the swing that moved the ball to the hole in 4D dimensions and succeed at the same time. Just look for it. You wait until you find the guaranteed best move. It's worth it when you hole in one twice per screen. Doesn't matter if they're different distance or velocity. What matters is differentiating swings. And the worst singular one, both backwards if you include that or relatively falling over, limited amount of degrees, or an African swallow carrying away the ball. In 7-dimensional golf, there could be an uneven amount of middle ground in perfect, cohesive swings. We must quantify strange infinites, listing exceptions to logic or consider brackets, like pre-thought to consider same proclivities. They are like a dip into an abyss, thus in thought. T, count to 100 relatively. The feeling was light, hovering and lightly touching subjects. Was everyone unique, impressionable who wanted to change the world? A feeler then? More feeling than they thought maybe. So many people are just not impressionable or concerned. James was an ENTP Myers-Briggs personality, great personality writing. Concerned with ideas, future, and theory, math, science, logic. T, abstract instead of practical. The intuitive extroverted engaging in the world, giving him artistic blur and ideas, and being able to pick complicated relations seemingly from nothing, from a mind in the clouds and abstract trance contexts. No one else can do this, actually. 6 brain areas are always activated instead of 2 relations. I've got it, they say. Clearly these far things relevant to people are connected like this. Worse at certain realistic things, in danger of getting realistically outpaced in armchair analysis. When an intelligent person feels like to analyze properly as you should, the others feel cheeky, different, interrupting urges. Surely this would be interesting to everyone and they would listen like in school or something, pushing their reasonableness and undoing the cheekiness like fate. Debating, innovating, and being intuitive, changing himself and his surroundings into his visionary future. P, being prospecting made you not a planner, and lacking J and extroverted thinking can be criticized for not being efficient enough, not having proper expressions of effort, confusing. P and J are critical in different ways. J about real things, proper effort, and social immediate foolishness. Generally pointing things out quickly or not tolerating a bit of weirdness is unwelcome. How bad is it to be weird really? Depends on the weird. Judging letter, here, not meaning directly judging, has a mode for efficiency and leadership. The P doesn't. Prospecting people are longer to criticize people, but might have a low tolerance for stupidity and bring people low with their monologues of people not being good enough and failed society. Usually for the J's. The P's are indeed laid back in their mind, might not be immediate something comes forth, patience and tolerance. He expressed his random energy and spontaneity, enjoying being smart when spontaneous, and then E for extroverted, not always being social but getting energy from people. He liked locking himself away in attics with books, broom sheds, and on the roof, just like his sister. Things kept him interested, really, and he never had enough time to really learn and entertain himself as he wanted. Time was relative, and he was denied thoughts and pleasure.
Pro pain Jutsun.
He mustn't get distracted from learning on our spare time, but being medium interruptible as a person is enough. And statistically, lots of things of extroverts, really, being outgoing, enthusiastic, going into another gear with gorps of people and dynamic contingencies. The future, it depended on his intelligence. When you encounter an analyst, not only are they sure of what they researched, they statistically smarter. It's not really so unexpected and upsetting, really, introverted and Jay being smarter. But even feelers like INFP are statistically as smart. Let's talk about the stupid personality types. Oh no, it looks like the writer was punted out the window. The most common individual difference in intelligence is 85 to 115 IQ, where 70% of people exist. As an idea person, an ENTP's first run at an idea isn't their best. It's their last, all come out unfiltered. He was a man priding of constant improvement, who spends all their life without improvement. As long as you figure out you're good enough before the version, even nerds can turn into their strongest version in the gym. A strong nerd is a force to be reckoned with. Who knows what genetics you have for strength? A wide neck, forearms, and calves indicates strong strength genetics. Performance, and maybe even perfection, not always seen and not always recognized like a deeper theory level. A lot of people's inner worlds can be surprising, hard to imagine, and resounding like you failing to admit being bad at something, yet still intelligent. It's a different world than people who are just meeting the week's ends or studies to go to an expensive bar, maybe assertive in career, wealth, or privilege with more than a party, or who live for final, too late vacations outside of work or excitement, and stupid exciting risk. For those that live for gourmand experiences and the best of culture, for those that question and contrarian fit and conquer, for those that live perfectly confined in the illusions of society, and those who don't. It's painstaking, eternal cleanse, existing for the future and not the rewarding present. Easily finding goals possible in 10 years, fit ambition on the good days and never recognition quick. The bane of realizing, improving everything mediocre to become some sort of unit. Maybe an Ubermensch, quote Nietzsche on a breakthrough, breakdown day. When you are a thinker, you spend your whole life learning for the sake of learning, never approved, I need fiber, and I need omega fats from natural sources. In recovery for perfect recovery, he was in his routine of gymming, reading, writing poetry, making him smarter, brain-derived neurotropic factor finicity vascular, and through language. The prospect of reading is enough to increase IQ points. The efficient part is the language part, a contemporary invention by set brains or by any race. The creativity stuck around and he entered proper states. He was thinking about how there's a perfect and worst position in 4D chess or 5D golf. The smart thing to figure out here is slash and how to beat 4D chess. There's not a certainty or probability cloud, but you have to go for the next best thing. If you had an AI being able to consider every, let's say, 1,000 positions, you would find the swing that moved the ball to the hole in 4D dimensions and succeed at the same time. Just look for it. You wait until you find the guaranteed best move. It's worth it when you hole in one twice per screen. Doesn't matter if they're different distance or velocity. What matters is differentiating swings. And the worst singular one, both backwards if you include that, or relatively falling over, limited amount of degrees, or an African swallow carrying away the ball. In 7-dimensional golf, there could be an uneven amount of middle ground in perfect, cohesive swings. We must quantify strange infinites, listing exceptions to logic or consider brackets, like pre-thought to consider same proclivities. They are like a dip into an abyss, thus in thought. T count to 100 relatively. The feeling was light, hovering and lightly touching subjects. Was everyone unique, impressionable, who wanted to change the world? A feeler then? More feeling than they thought maybe. So many people are just not impressionable or concerned. James was an ENTP Myers-Briggs personality, great personality writing. Concerned with ideas, future, and theory, math, science, logic. T, abstract instead of practical. The intuitive extroverted engaging in the world,
Ah,
giving him
okay.
artistic. As an idea person, an ENTP's first run at an idea isn't their best. It's their last, all come out unfiltered. He was a man priding of constant improvement, who spends all their life without improvement. As long as you figure out you're good enough before the version, even nerds can turn into their strongest version in the gym. A strong nerd is a force to be reckoned with. Who knows what genetics you have for strength? A wide neck, forearms, and calves indicates strong strength genetics. Performance, and maybe even perfection, not always seen and not always recognized like a deeper theory level. A lot of people's inner worlds can be surprising, hard to imagine, and resounding like you failing to admit being bad at something, yet still intelligent. It's a different world than people who are just meeting the week's ends or studies to go to an expensive bar, maybe assertive in career,
One
wealth,
minute.
or privilege with more than a party, or who live for final, 2 late vacations outside of work or excitement, and stupid exciting risk. For those that live for gourmand experiences and the best of culture, for those that question and contrarian fit and conquer, for those that live perfectly confined in the illusions of society, and those who don't. It's painstaking, eternal cleanse, existing for the future and not the rewarding present. Easily finding goals possible in 10 years. Fit ambition on the good days and never recognition quick. The bane of realizing, improving everything mediocre to become some sort of unit. Maybe an Übermensch. Quote Nietzsche on a breakthrough, breakdown day. When you are a thinker, you spend your whole life learning for the sake of learning. Never approved, comparing and improving always out of reach. When I would be perfect in brain, speed, and brawn, everyone would respect me. They would bask in my glory, and I would take it from there. Although when balanced, he turned insightful, like everyone, coming like a new stranger. Surprising him too, another exhausting idea for sharing, through easily interrupted. The introverted side people didn't see was that of a nerdy book reader, mathy and strategic like a brilliant scientist, more dry, logical. The introverted, logical part of the thinkers is supposed to be completely dry, even without creativity and intuition. Wouldn't want to not be logical, climbing societal ladders quietly, more so than the primary extroverted side, interacting with the world and gave him the creativity, resources, and strategy to do so. It felt competitive, but didn't have as much primary resources as some other people do. The very feeling indeed is auxiliary. In lack of ability against the smartest chessboard masterminds, INEJ for example, they feel they just need more time, but that they are still onto some good stuff. Every personality, using their secondary function, feel like they are onto some good stuff, respecting each other's confusing intuition/creativity. Some might never be reached because of the simple fact they are not introverted. Only 33% are introverted. But everyone has an introverted world, enjoying pursuing alone even when people leave, relaxing from responsibility, things kept for you, and entertainment apps, exciting different like series binged, and stories about people unknown unless you talk about it. The depth of the introvert is more surprising, so to the way they talk about pen and paper. Enjoying expanding the limits of his knowledge and intelligence, he had a thirst for knowledge and performance. Strength that was hard to understand unless measuring up when beaten. Like a voice telling him to inappropriately do something insanely silly. Everyone's eccentricities and quirks make sense when they're doing the right thing. Some of the weirdest people are good at explaining things thoroughly for newcomers, but they also need to listen match. He could spend time with people, drink, and cheer, but also a long time alone as an ambivert. Ambiverts get energy from people, but are too sensitive to keep it for long. Like a sadness over a truth. He was an intellectually overexcitable, typical in intellect, imagination. At least he had an imagination and psychomotor. Incredibly, excellent active mind, extreme desire to synthesize truth, morals, contemporary theory, to analyze and categorize and think about thinking. He could be a lone wolf, but not as bad as the introverted thinkers. The ENTP is the extrovert with the biggest introverted side. Their mind is a fine place to be alone with, not just the existing world. It is worth mentioning that it can be really fun being an ENTP. Some other smart things he was thinking about. He could have been a professor in any science, but he was lazy, waiting for spurs of energy, comfortable backseat, and reliable results. Don't think of quantum physics as logic with exceptions. Think of it as exceptions with logic. Throw the logic out the window. It doesn't follow the rules like classical knowledge. To get James' attention, you could talk about comfortable things, but not comfortable enough. Flashes of enthusiasm, the nerd in his right element, and neuroticism. He was almost afraid sometimes, waiting for everything to line up for his intelligence, pushing things annoyingly one step further each time. One must not be afraid of ants and accountants, blazing argumenting peers. In life, to be pushed over is optional. Life is full of 100 moments when you have backed down really, not choosing the bravest option. Usually starting when you are 10, finding your bravery, and everyone should. Sometimes you had to wait for James annoyingly to present ideas and retort. Otherwise, he would be thorough and logical at levels to feel threatened. Maybe he would learn better timings being nervous and neurotic. Everything takes its time. If you quantify the next logical thing, a sequence of theory, a higher exponentiality, what's the next smart thing in physics after electron position into a probability cloud? We think it must function as 7 times 7 or 7 to the power of 7 or necessarily 7 caret 7 caret 7, but it is not necessarily true. It is just nonlinear, random, unquantifiable, unless where it is. What is silly over time, contemporary, and quantified? Everything you notice is quantifiable unless you're wrong. First twist, contemporary. James had a body he had carefully built with steroids over the last 10 years with a brilliant eccentric theory to training. Researched like a scientist in muscular lab coats and best of the best knowledge of nutrition that few really knew about at this point. Just look at these natural athletic performance enhancers. Sometimes pivoting in books he felt lucky to read. That is potential. He had studied articles, YouTube videos, and books about exercising, really thought about 3D bodies and what he could discern with his senses from exercise. He understood the action and introverted like feeling like inside as good as thus bookworm theory. James could discern fake and useful feeling inside when exercising and knew he was imbalanced or imperfectly imbalanced with his limbs being longer than the others really. Adjusting things for that in the gym doesn't really yield results because it is a 3D space and adjust to the right would need you to go up too. Probably the right adjusting is relative like halfway and diagonal strange. He remembered the first year in the gym and how rough you were and the inaccurate feeling inside. He was at another level thus, handsome gym prophet. Googling the right efficient gym questions for the perfect gym session. Although he had spent the last half his life, like many others, learning about the perfect gym session. Like perfecting a sculpture learning theory and quickly feeling like monologuing, explaining like fairly scientific. Everyone explained like this is true and meta. So many YouTube videos, exercising vlogs from average people who just did steroids, That is the cycle. You find a new fitness YouTuber. They talk about a different exercising. Then they just took steroids. If they seem incompetent, saying normal things, or nervous about the results. But literally being brilliant thus, he walked around with a perfect updated theory, like golden seer, a gym seer if people would only ask. If you're not gaining muscle / enough muscle, you must go back to the 8 basics. Interesting basics of going crazy, but not too far, protein, but also eating copiously professional calorious, usually kept back by working out twice per day. Intensity and recovery was respected. He would go through each in his mind, chiseling and perfection. Being a contemporary vegan for now, he force-fed himself salad to get enough calories, fatty oils, the few vegan oils with saturated fat, like coconut, shea, and palm. What a stupid thing to do it was. When you take steroids, you lose your mind, not just your dingleberries. Jesus, liver thinks you're an alcoholic. He had figured out a way back with foods that increase learning speed and problem solving. But if there was only a way like with magic things could be solved. Thankfully, this is a fantasy book. For now, there was a muscle monster posing the most impressive. He knew every number that could be given to a muscle fiber, and water content. Every thought to theoretical in time for every exercise and intensity. Reps and short recovery. The strongest nerd had figured it out. How much does variety help versus the best exercise for every muscle group? Cocoa powder gave as much grip strength as creatine. Athletic performance enhancers were sometimes...
I think I'm gonna take a break actually. Goodbye.